And you're watching Book TV on C-SPAN 2, and from time to time we like to visit universities and attend different events so we get a chance to talk with authors. And this week we are at FreedomFest, a libertarian organization in Las Vegas for their annual conference. And we're joined by author Jeffrey Tucker, who is editor of Laissez-Faire Books and the author of these books. It's a Jetsons World, Private Miracles and Public Crimes, as well as Bourbon for Breakfast, Living Outside the Status Quo. Jeffrey Tucker, let's start with It's a Jetsons World. What's the Jetsons versus Flintstones dichotomy that we live in?
Well, you know, these are both very dangerous books, so thank you for having me on. Unorthodox approaches to all sorts of issues. By Jetsons World, I really mean that, well, I was trying to capture the sense of miracle that's around us every day. Due to technology and the astonishing innovations that have happened over the last 10 years, fulfilling my childhood dreams. You know, every once in a while I wonder if I'm going to wake up and realize that the whole digital age was just a big dream, you know, and Walter Cronkite will be on the air, you know, giving me the news or something like that. It all seems too good to be true. And I don't know, there's so many things that are amazing. Let me just give one example. The other day, I was driving in a small town in the Midwest. I was looking for a restaurant to eat. So I stopped my car, I used a quick iPhone app, and I found all the restaurants that were around me. I was able to click, I saw one I liked, I clicked on the button, I pulled up the menu, it had the daily specials there and the full price list of everything that was going. It's like having x-ray vision, be able to look right inside the restaurant, all through this miraculous digital technology. And part of the point of this book is to draw attention to these amazing things and, I think more importantly, help us to understand the source of them, which is the market economy, not government.
Well, what's the Flintstones part of your book?
The Flintstones part is the part that the government runs. That's the physical world that continues to break down, mostly due to taxes and regulations. We live in a highly regimented physical world where just day after day bureaucracies are giving more and more rules on how to use things, how things have to be made, just like in the old Soviet Union or something like that. And we're seeing a kind of breakdown of all the physical things that we once took for granted due to these regulations, whether it's washing machines or dryers or toasters or hot water heaters in our homes. Everything is so heavily regulated now that things aren't working as well as they used to. So it's a strange thing. On the one hand, in the free world of the digital economy, we have massive innovation every day. There's a new release. Everything's more spectacular than ever. And then in the physical world, things are kind of dilapidated, ever less impressive, actually. So the book tries to draw attention to this contrast and draw out the cause and effect relationships here. I argue here that the reason that the digital economy is growing and progressing and serving so many people is because it's a freer sector of society.
Well, one of the examples you talk about, or one of your chapters in It's a Jetsons World, is about the fact that students should try to work for free.
Yeah, now this is a very serious problem. Unemployment among the young. It's a gigantic problem. Young kids are not getting work experience anymore. When I was younger, I was able to start work when I was 12 or 13. Now it's almost impossible to get to work at all until you're like 16 at the very latest. And that seems to me absurd, and there are fewer and fewer opportunities. And what I suggest is that young people get to work as soon as they possibly can, even if that means working for free. So you can build up contacts, and so that you can develop a network, so you can have a nice resume and people that recommend you. But I think more importantly than that, work is very important for building character. I argue here that the workplace is an important educational institution, probably more important than the usual formal education that you get. You learn how to deal with other people, you learn how to deal with authority, you have to be creative in any job marketplace, there's discipline associated with it. All these things, you learn how to handle money. This is an experience that all Americans have had, really, since the beginning of our country, which the current generation is not having. I think it's a serious problem.
But how does that fit into your Jetsons World, Private Miracles and Public Crimes?
I try to do in the book is not just draw attention to miracles, which I think it's important to be aware of how wonderful the digital world has become, to be conscious of it, and then to be aware of the problems, the way regulations have kind of caused the dilapidation of the physical world. But I also try to provide solutions. I think it's important that people realize that even in an age of what I call despotism, you have to still live a full and free life in whatever way you can. And so this is one of the solutions I suggest for young people. Get to work. Find a place where you can volunteer your efforts and integrate yourself into the division of labor, because it's going to come at some point that you will be on your own. You will be out of that shell of government schooling, and you're going to have to provide for yourself and for your loved ones.
Jeffrey Tucker, where did the title Bourbon for Breakfast come from?
Well, this is, it came from a very surprising event in my life. I went over to breakfast with a very old scholar at Auburn University who was an expert in Greek and Latin, and he'd written a book on the Old Testament, and just one of these old Southern gentlemen. And the very first thing he said, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" I said, "Well, sure." Then he said, "Would you like bourbon in that coffee?" And I was shocked. Shocked. What is he doing drinking in the morning? It's like a taboo. And I thought, what an interesting contrast. This old scholar, Southern gentleman, violating one of the great social taboos of drinking in the morning. I said yes, of course, and I liked it. So anyway, it was kind of a big moment for me, because I realized a lot of the things we think are true are not true. We have a kind of a crufty world where we're asked to obey the central plan. You know, we're supposed to not go to college until we're 18. You know, we're supposed to stay in school, not work until you're 16. Yeah, it's like there's a map for our lives that has been imposed upon us. And the book urges us to think outside the box and think about new things and do things a new way towards living a better life. In other words, don't just accept what people tell you. Try new things and consider different points of view. The title Bourbon for Breakfast then is a window into an urge to think less orthodox, fewer orthodoxies about the world, and to think new things.
But also you talk about the fact that morality, in your view, does not come from the state. No. And one of the examples you use is dumping grease down your drain.
I do dump grease down my drain. It's true, I do. That's funny you would mention that. I'm also a big fan of lard. I consume a lot of lard in my biscuits and pancakes, and I cook with it all the time. So yeah, that's another example. Lard is a good food. I love lard. I praise lard. I love fast food. Everybody's down on fast food. I defend fast food in this book. I love McDonald's. I think Taco Bell is a miracle. I'm crazy for Walmart. You know, I was watching a movie the other day, and it was featuring, it was set a century ago, and it had all these socialists, and they're all organizing and making demands and laying out what they wanted. What did they want? They wanted prosperity for the masses. They wanted the working man and woman to have health care, to have housing, and to have access to the things that the rich have. Well, I agreed with everything they said. I mean, their ideals are my ideals. But what brought that to us? Not the socialist state. It was the free market that did it. I mean, the free market is delivering to us the old goals of the socialists from a century ago. We need to realize that and come to terms with it. So I'm crazy for Walmart. It's very interesting to me that the people who are down on Walmart are the socialists and the leftists. I don't understand it. When I go to Walmart, I see the masses shopping, getting great stuff at low prices, and this is like Mecca. This is heaven. This is like, you know, the dream of every great philosopher from the beginning of time to achieve something as wonderful at Walmart. Why don't we appreciate it? I don't understand it. So anyway, I defend that too. So.
Jeffrey Tucker, you talk about the piano industry in Bourbon for Breakfast. And with the current debate on outsourcing going on the highest political levels, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was an interesting essay to research. I got interested in the old American piano industry when I was in the market for a piano. I went to an antique store and I played some of these pianos, these old American pianos that were made in the interwar period. They sound beautiful. They're orchestrally interesting instruments, totally different from the instruments you hear today. And I began to look into the U.S. piano industry. It was gigantic. There was a piano in every home. It was a hugely profitable industry. It was, I have got all the data in there, but it was a major part of the American economy, and you can still get these instruments today. Well, at some point it became no longer economically feasible for them to be manufactured in the U.S., and they moved, you know, to Japan and Korea. Now China is a major manufacturer of piano. But my point in the essay is that there was no panic. I don't recall anybody panicking about, oh, isn't it terrible that pianos are leaving the U.S. shores and we're outsourcing our pianos and losing jobs. No, it's just part of the normal market process that takes place. It's a part of economic development, and we have to let it play itself out. And I discuss the piano industry in light of the U.S. car industry and the panic that, oh, we can't possibly have prosperity so long as the U.S. is not manufacturing all the cars we drive. Well, I just argue that that's